I'm your host, RP.
I'm your co-host King Mackey.
Got Corey H.
Christopher Wilkins.
Christopher Wilkins.
Christ-
Go ahead. How King's doing tonight? How's everybody doing tonight?
Wonderful.
Good to go.
Love and life.
How about them families? Everybody's family doing okay?
Wonderful, bro.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Everybody's doing good. Yes, sir.
Any stories to tell? Any stories to tell today? Any run-ins with the
No
At
Walmart,
Walmart.
no cruise.
Oh man.
Oh,
I know.
man.
I think about it now. I went to Walmart today and I thought about Chris. I thought about Chris.
Did you have your hands in your pocket?
That's right.
I went to electronics. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Open up that box. Open up that box for me, please.
Man,
Yeah,
that's
that's why I did a pickup order today.
There you go.
Have you seen the drones? They got the drones now that come and I've seen them a couple times already. The drones will come to your house and they would drop the package to your house and it would go right back up and the drone will take off.
Really?
Yes, man.
I've seen them.
That won't happen where I'm
drones
at.
parked.
Nah, me either.
I've seen the drones parked at the WalMarts, but I have never seen one actually in action. So have you seen one in
yeah.
action?
Yeah, I've seen it twice already. It's amazing, a little bit freaky at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, a little bit of a
Wow,
positive
that
words.
makes it that way in our play.
That's right. A little bit of positive words this evening, a little bit of inspiration. This is titled Character. I would be true, for there are those who trust me. I would be pure, for there are those who care. I would be strong, for there are those who suffer. I would be brave, for there is much to dare. I would be friend of all, the foe, the friendless. I would be giving and forget the gift. I would be humble, for I know my weakness. I would look up and laugh and love and lift.
That's what's up.
Like that.
That's what's up. Yeah, I love that.
I like that.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
the purpose of this beautiful podcast is to have open discussions on various subjects by way of reading books and articles related to the topics picked, which would allow us to discuss, review, debate, and enlighten ourselves along the way, as well as those who wish to join us on this beautiful journey. And so the premise of our podcast is this year's topic is the origins of Africa. The origins of Africa are deeply rooted in the continent's role as the cradle of humanity. All modern humans, Homo sapiens, share a common origin in Africa, as supported by the genetic, fossil, and archaeological evidence. The subject is very powerful, explosive, passionate, and very energetic, to say the least.
Yes, sir.
So we had a little bit of a hiatus there. We've upgraded our podcast and got some better equipment here, so we took a little bit of time off. But we are back tonight. We are starting off on, I believe, it's chapter 4. Chapter 4. Each person has a chapter to cover, 3 bullet points, as we had discussed earlier, and we'll go from there. So I'll kick this off, and I have Africa and the civilizing of Europe, the empire of the Moors. And so all my bullet points will be in a form of questions. So my first one is bullet point 1. What was the early history of Europe before the Moors? What was it like given the Greek and Roman civilizations that existed at that time? Europe had already experienced over a millennium of development shaped largely by Greek and Roman civilizations. First, there was ancient Greece, which existed between the periods of 800 to 146 BCE. It wasn't a single country, but a collection of city-states such as Athens, Sparta, and Corinth. Athens developed early democracy. As we know, Sparta was an infamous military city-state. Along the lines of philosophy and thought, there were the great thinkers such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, who laid the foundations for Western philosophy, logic, ethics, and science. For science and mathematics, there were Pythagoras and Archimedes, whom advanced geometry, astronomy, and physics. And through Alexander the Great, who created the Hellenistic world. Then there was the Roman Republic and Empire from 509 BCE to 476 CE. After absorbing Greek influence, Rome rose to dominate Europe. The Republic produced the infamous Julius Caesar and Augustus, who was the first emperor. Roman law became the foundation for many legal systems. Christianity was legalized in 313 by CE under Constantine the Great, which became the official religion later in the 4th century. The Western Roman Empire fell in 476 CE. What changed? Urban life declined, trade shrank, central authority fragmented, literacy dropped outside monasteries. Christianity became the unifying institution. Culturally, Europe was rooted in Greco-Roman philosophy, art, law, and early Christianity. Politically, from city-states, republic, empire, fragmented kingdoms. Economically, highly interconnected under Rome, more localized after Rome's fall. Technologically, advanced engineering under Rome, slower urban development in early medieval period. During the period of 400 BCE to 700 CE, the Germanic tribes established kingdoms in Europe. The kingdoms were the Visigothic, Ostrogothic, and Frankish kingdoms. The Visigothic kingdom ruled. Society was Christian and influenced by Roman law. Internal political instability weakened the kingdom. This time frame is considered the Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
Man, nothing went on during the Dark Ages. Let me tell you that right now. You know, after the church turned their back, Rome was downturned, you know, and then that's where the Moors come in and play a role, you know, come into Spain and rule for 700 years to help out Europe and put them back on, I say, a particular platform, you know. That the Moors themselves, and that is a great story. I remember probably about a couple of years ago, I was going over that and kind of looking into the Moors, and I posted that on Facebook, and I had a lot of brothers, light brown brothers, come to me and say, "Bro, I had no idea. I had no idea." And so just through that information, man, we had some enlightened conversations from then on. So I would admonish, every brother and sister to look into the Moors, definitely.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard of the Moors. I would like to do some if you can, Haru, send me some information on the Moors.
I definitely will.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will. You know, yeah, we
So
won't.
the Moors, they occupied Spain for Moors occupied
Yes.
Spain for 700 years, and then the Christians
Yeah.
are the ones that kicked them out.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And they kind of used the I don't think they used racism, but it was very similar, and
Right.
like they used
Right.
background.
Right. Right. Yeah. Religion.
Not
Yeah.
if you converted.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you
That's
know,
right.
and then even too, you know, even going into like the slave trade, when we hear about the Atlantic slave trade, it makes you wonder, because even then the Moors and Muslims and the Sultans were in the Atlantic Sea as pirates, called Berber pirates. Matter of fact, Chris would be fond of this, but the United States Navy was created, I would say, or permanently installed due to the Berber pirates. I think it was in the Navy Naval Act of like 1784. You know, and that was too because the United States and Europe were paying the Berber pirates millions of dollars because they were enslaving European people. You know, there are plenty of books. Matter of fact, there are plenty of letters from Thomas Jefferson to the Berber pirates, you know, explaining to, you know, basically asking them not to continue to do what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Great stuff.
That was
okay. Go ahead.
1784.
Yeah, Naval Act of 1784.
I was just saying
Yeah.
to confirm that.
Yeah, because I believe the United States and the United States and Britain, you know, the United States pulled away from Britain in 1783 and became its own independent country.
Yeah, the Navy was established October of 1776.
Yeah, it became permanent around that time, but they had to establish a navy in 1784 due to the Berber pirates,
Absolutely. That's right.
which were part of the Moors and Sultans, and things like that. So
yeah, outstanding,
Oh yeah.
outstanding. Okay, bullet point number 2. What was the state of Europe during the Moor civilization? Uh, Picking up from my first point, Europe was in the early Middle Ages, as they consider it now, politically fragmented, largely ruled in many regions, and still reorganizing after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So, what did the Moorish Iberia look like? Under the Caliphate of Cordoba, cities such as Cordoba were among the largest and most sophisticated in Europe. They featured paved streets and public lighting, large libraries and schools, advanced irrigation and agriculture, strong trade links in the Mediterranean and beyond. To the point, oh no, no. The Moors did not create European civilization, but they played a major role in transmitting, expanding, and advancing knowledge that later influenced Europe. In preservation and the transmission of knowledge, the Moors translated and preserved works of Greek thinkers like Aristotle. Scholars such as Averroes who in, who wrote influential commentaries that will uh, later study helped European scholasticism. The, they had translation centers in cities like Toledo that helped move Arabic and classical knowledge into Latin Europe. In science and medicine, the Moors made advances in algebra, astronomy, and medical practice. Advancements in hospitals and medical texts influence which later influenced European universities. Um, in the areas of agriculture, technology, and culture, the Moors made advancements in improving irrigation systems, introducing crops like citrus, rice, and sugarcane to Iberia. They helped stimulate trade and urban growth. There was distinctive architecture, example, the Great Mosque of Cordoba, and the artistic and intellectual exchange among Muslims, Christians, and Jews. So during Muslim rule in Iberia, Europe was politically divided but gradually developing. More Spain became a major center of learning, science, trade, and urban life, and it helped transmit classical and scientific knowledge that later contributed to Europe's intellectual revival. And so I want to read this little bit of part here on page 176 about the city of Cordova and how beautiful it was. Cordova in the 10th century was very much like a modern city. The streets were well paved and there were raised sidewalks for pedestrians. At night, one could walk for 10 miles by the light of lamps flanked by an uninterrupted extent of buildings. And this was hundreds of years before there was a paved street in Paris or a street lamp in London. The population of the city was over 1 million, and there were 200,000 homes, 800 public schools, many colleges, universities, 10,000 palaces of the wealthy, besides many royal palaces surrounded by beautiful gardens. There were 5,000 mills in Cordova at a time when there was not even one in the rest of Europe. And there were 900 public baths, besides a large number of private ones, at a time when the rest of Europe considered bathing as extremely wicked and to be avoided as much as possible. Cordova was also graced by a system of over 4,000 public markets. Thoughts?
yeah, yeah, man, that's amazing.
Yeah,
But
man.
again, it's something that
Well,
go ahead.
in Cordova, I was saying in Cordova, didn't they have a giant library
Yes. Yes.
there? At a
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, they did.
Yes.
huge library that they brought in,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I think when the Christians moved,
Yes.
Yeah.
Had over 600,000 volumes in it.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 But again, that's one of those things that we're not taught in our Western history books. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Right. Right.
And I think too that's just one of those things that's necessary to be taught, because we must realize, I feel like, even just through history, is that we need each other. We need each other.
Hmm.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so when you realize you need each other, I mean, there's a lot of times also need to be fighting or there's no need to create division, because once you realize through history and through the present time, it's necessary to have each other's backs.
Sure. Sure.
100%, man.
Sure. Okay, bullet point number 3. What was the state of Europe after the civilization of the Moors ceased to exist? In the early part of the 13th century, the Moorish power in Spain began to decline. The Muslims, due to religious and political differences, began to split into fractions and wage war among themselves. At the same time, the Christians of Europe, having absorbed the science and culture of the Moors, which enabled them to bring to an end the long night of the Dark Ages, began to form a united front in order to drive the Moors back into Africa. The Moors introduced the manufacture of gunpowder into Europe. Later, the Christian Europeans used this weapon against them. When Moorish rule in Iberia ended in 1492 with the fall of the Emirate of Granada, Europe was not in decline. It was entering a new phase of expansion and transformation. Here's what Europe looked like at that point. Europe was stronger and had more centralized kingdoms. Spain unified under Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile. France and England were consolidating power after long internal conflicts. Feudal fragmentation was giving way to stronger monarchies.
Yeah.
Then there was the Renaissance. Italy, especially cities like Florence, was at the center of the Renaissance Europe was experiencing. A revival of classical Greek and Roman learning, advances in art, science, and philosophy, growth of universities and scholarship. Europe also entered an age of exploration. 1492 marked the voyage of Christopher Columbus. Shortly after that, Spain and Portugal began overseas empires and global trade networks expanded, and Europe's global influence rapidly increased. Finally, there was religious consolidation and conflict. Spain enforced religious unity, meaning they either exposed or forced the conversion of Jews and later Muslims. The Protestant Reformation would begin in 1517, reshaping Europe religiously and politically. Overall, after the Moorish civilization in Iberia ended, Europe was politically centralizing, economically expanding, intellectually flourishing, and beginning global imperial expansion rather than declining. Europe was transitioning into the early modern period, which would dramatically increase its global power. And I just want to read this excerpt here on page 190. The curious idea that the white race has been responsible for all the great civilizations of the past is nothing more than a crude superstition propagated mainly by European-oriented racist historians. And we think that the memory of courageous dissenters from this theory should be held in honor and respect. The superior germ stuff of the great race is completely discredited by the fact that our ancestors remained in the wings, pure barbarians, during the 2,000 years when the dark men of the Mediterranean race were constructing civilization, and that our white race, first in the Greeks and then in the Teutons, devastated civilization for centuries. Until about 700 BC, the philosophers of the world would have said that white men seemed incapable of civilization. None of our modern sophistry redeems the squalor of Europe from the 5th to the 11th century. And it was again the dark-skinned men of the South who restored civilization. By the year 1000, Europe was reduced to a condition which, if we were not Europeans, we should frankly call barbarism. Was reduced to the condition we should frankly call barbarism. Yet at the same time, the Arabs had a splendid civilization in Spain, Sicily, Syria, Egypt, and Persia, and it linked on to those in India and China. We write manuals of the history of Europe or of the Middle Ages, and we confine ourselves to a small, squalid area. Russia and Prussia were not yet civilized, and Spain was Moorish, and ignore the brilliant civilization that ran from Portugal to the China Sea. Thoughts?
Mm, mm. That's powerful all by itself, bro.
All by itself.
Well,
yeah.
All by itself.
Well, it seems, I mean, this is purely my opinion, but I mean, from what I get is with the Europeans taking over at this time, it really is the rise of the Christian religion, and
Mm-hmm.
the Europeans used that religion to take
They
power.
did.
Sure.
They did.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
They
facts on that.
absolutely did. And
Yeah.
so it was
And a lot of
also
people don't
too.
talk about that. They just call it white people.
Right.
It's it was the Christian religion. What was primarily developed in Europe after the fall of Rome. But yeah, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's facts on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's facts on that.
Cool. Those are my 3 bullet points.
All right, brothers. It is my turn. Allow this time. It is my turn. All right. So I had chapter 5. And chapter 5 is the golden age of West Africa. All right. So here's my summary. Okay. In chapter 5, Jackson explores the rise and the achievements and global significance of West Africa's kingdoms during their peak periods, often referred often referred to as the Golden Age of West Africa, roughly spanning the medieval period of the 8th through the 16th centuries. This era saw powerful, sophisticated states like Ghana, Mali, and Songa emerge as major economic, culture, and intellectual centers. All right, Jackson highlights how these empires were far from isolated or primitive. Instead, they were hubs of long distance trade, especially in gold, salt, and other commodities. They connected West Africa to North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. So cities such as Timbuktu, Gaia, and Jannah became vibrant centers of learning and Islamic scholarship according to thinkers and traders from these regions or from many regions. Excuse me. This chapter also challenges Eurocentric narratives that downplay African agencies and complexity. Jackson emphasizes that West Africa states had complex political systems, rich artistic traditions, and extensive networks of scholarship long before intense European influence. Their achievements, from medals and urban planning to education and diplomacy, demonstrated profound sophistication and influenced the world history. So, here are my 3 bullet points and things that just stuck out to me. So, number 1, sophisticated political and economic systems. All right. Jackson emphasized that these West African empires were organized and powerful, not loose tribal groups. Their rules, their rulers exercised centralized authority, regulated commerce, and maintained strong military structures. Trade routes across the Sahara connected them with distant civilizations and brought wealth and influence. That's my number 1. Any questions on that?
You know, um, one thing that I find fascinating is, so when you talk about the uh, the gold and the rare uh, the rare
The salts
jewels and things like that, and salt and ivory, this is a long time ago, and this is
right.
Africa, and yet to this day, that country still has vast amounts of those same things. At just
Yeah.
about not anywhere else in the world,
Right.
but Africa
Right.
do that. I mean, gold. I mean, they were dressed in gold, and this is so long ago, and it's still the same today, and they're still finding these treasures all
Right.
over Africa.
Right. Right. And just the natural resources in Africa to
Yes,
this day.
yes,
I was listening to Professor Sachs, and I believe he's a Yale or Harvard professor, and he was stating that Africa will become the 3rd largest economy in the next 5 to 10 years.
yes,
All
sir.
right. And then in the next 15 years, it might have been up to 25. I believe he stated that Africa be the number 1 superpower. And part
Yes.
of that is due to even their age. The average age
Hmm.
in Africa is like 19 years old. And
Yes.
in the next 20 years, the average age will be 25 years old. And
Yes.
I believe also too that only there's about 40% of Africa that has not been colonized nor researched. You know, And so when you start looking into, I watched a documentary about resources in the United States, and they were stating that in the next 25 years to 30 years, the United States could start running out of water. Could start running out of water, and that currently now other countries from the Middle East are digging wells in Arizona and other parts of the United States and drawing water from these aquifers to take back to the Middle East. There have been farmers and other people of different communities who have attempted to sue these corporations that are Saudi based, and again pulling water from the United States and natural resources. So I thought that that's some information we need to know.
Mhm.
You know, but anyway, number two, centers of scholarship and culture.
That's scary.
That is, yeah, that definitely is. You know, and it's some to really consider, and maybe even to redirect our, like, I've even looked into investing into Africa itself,
Mhm.
or even the AI or technology there, just due to the fact that even it being the third superpower over Asia in the next 5 to 10 years, it is, man, that is immaculate. That is, man, that's an amazing concept, and an amazing, and not only amazing concept, but an amazing, how would you say it, contribution to society,
Mhm.
in
To the world.
general. Brother, yeah, absolutely, to the world, for sure, for
You
sure.
know, and to that, you mentioned the age. So I believe it
Hmm.
was, and I could be wrong here, but 42% of their population is that young, which is
Yes,
why that will propel them to
right,
a superpower. And to
right.
their natural resources, I could be wrong here too, but I believe 90% of the world's resources comes from Africa.
Mm, mm, yeah, wow.
Something it's a huge amount that supports it. That's why the Western civilizations are fighting for what they're trying to get, but Africa's coming. So if
Right,
they lose that, that changes the whole
right,
landscape, especially when they become a superpower. They're not going to be able to get those resources. That's going to change. That's
right,
going to change.
right, right. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. So my number two bullet point is centers of scholarship and culture. So unlike many narratives that marginalize Africa's intellectual history, Jackson foregrounds cities like Timbuktu as intellectual capitals of medieval world, with universities, libraries, scholars contributing to fields including theology, law, astronomy, and literature. So basically, I mean, I kind of even go off of that myself. This basically what Robert just mentioned, through the medieval period, even about how the Moors had university libraries and scholars, and it was was diving deep into law and astronomy. Any other questions or thoughts on that? All right, brothers. So number three,
I don't got anything on that.
okay, okay. My third bullet point, a challenge to Eurocentric history. So a core thrust of this chapter, the book overall, really, is revisionist perspective, meaning that Jackson pushes back against history that portrayed Africa as a passive or uncivilized before European contact. Instead, he cites West Africa as a major contributor to the world history, with vibrant civilizations that influence global trade, culture, and ideas. Brothers Kings, that's chapter 5, which refers back to the golden age of West Africa. Thank you.
I would just add something to that too. So during the golden age of Africa, there also lived Mansa Musa, who was one of
Ah,
the most famous rulers in African history and is
ah,
often considered one of the wealthiest individuals to have ever lived. He
yes.
ruled the Mali Empire during his peak in the 14th century. And if you read his account, I mean, you'll be blown
Hmm.
away. You'll be
Yeah,
blown away.
yep, yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, I think Michael B. Jordan is looking to direct a movie about
Mm,
Musa,
mm,
no doubt.
mm.
So I'm looking forward to reading and hearing about that.
10-4.
Really?
Yeah, yep, sir.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's gonna be interesting.
And I think one thing we didn't mention in the golden age of Africa, the silk trade. And the
Sure.
Moors in that time did make a lot of silk,
Yes.
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure they had some trade going on with the Mongols.
They did. Yeah, they sure did. Yeah, I was going to bring that up in your in the next chapter.
All right. Who's next?
Right on, man. Who got chapter 6?
Corey, can you hear us? Corey on? Corey, I think he said he was having problems with his mic. Or Corey? I don't think Corey. Okay, Corey said he had to log off and log back in. So we'll give him a moment.
Okay. Yeah, 10 to that.
Yeah.
It's a great
But,
conversation, man.
It is great
conversation.
conversation. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn. You know what I mean? And like I said, I hear people when we talk about so-called Black History Month, it's just world history. It's something
right.
that no matter who you are in the United States, we should have some understanding of people's history. You know what I mean? And also that gives us I feel like it teaches us to understand each other just a little bit better on both sides of the spectrum. you know I've heard some brothers,
Yes.
over time mention, hey, if you guys don't like it here, just leave. And I'm like, man, we tried. Like Marcus Garvey tried, you know what I mean? But it's not
They
that
did.
easy. It's not that
It's
easy.
not that easy.
And he actually, purchased, two cruise liners, what I'm saying, to send
Mm-hmm.
people back to Africa. And once word got out about the Pan-African movement like that, they actually, did what ICE is doing currently now. They arrested him and deported him back to Jamaica. But
Mm-hmm.
to understand that, they were preparing to go back to Africa, to the root of
Mm-hmm.
things, and were denied that is something necessary for people to read and understand as well. Corey, you're on, brother.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm on, bro. Sorry,
All right,
gentlemen.
bro. You good?
Come on. You fine. You come on.
It's on you, Corey. You got chapter 6.
Chapter 6, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh yeah, okay. Chapter 6. These are the key. I don't have any questions, but these are the bullet points I got. Okay, so chapter 6 is discussing the advanced American civilizations, such as the Mayan and the Olmec. It says these civilizations had complex writing systems, massive
Hmm.
pyramids, and large cities, and advanced knowledge of science, math, and astronomy. Some of the scholars found it difficult to explain these civilizations developed so suddenly without outside influence. Um, Harvard professor Leo Weiner argued that Africans of West Africa, especially from powerful empires like Mali, Gambia, Sierra Leone, may have
Hmm.
crossed the Atlantic Ocean and influenced early civilizations.
Yep.
Uh, one of the strongest stories presented in this chapter involves a ruler of the Mali Empire, and his name was Massa Musa, if I
Yes,
pronounce that
sir.
right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a little bit about Mansa Musa. Um, he was exceptionally wealthy, and we don't hear about. I hadn't even heard about Mansa Musa until I read this book. But he was probably one of the most richest men ever, and it
Hmm.
says that Musa was exceptionally wealthy to extent that his contemporaries described him as inconceivably rich. There's
Hmm.
no there is no one way to put an accurate number on his wealth. It is known from local manuscripts and travelers' accounts that Mansa Musa's wealth came principally from Mali's empire control on taxing and trade and salt from the northern regions, and especially from gold panned in the mine. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so over a long period, Mali had amassed a large reserve of gold. Mali is also believed to have been involved in the trade in many goods such as ivory, slaves, spices, silks, and ceramics. However, presently little is known about the extent or mechanics of these trades. Okay, so at the time of Musa's ascension to the throne, Mali consisted largely of territories of former Ghana, the Ghana Empire, which had become a vassal of Mali. The Mali Empire comprised comprised land that is now part of Guinea, Senegal, and Gambia. Okay, so a little bit more about Musa. Musa went on a Hajj to Mecca, which is a Hajj is like what we go to go back to the motherland, which is Mecca. So
Hmm.
in 1324, traveling with an enormous entourage and a vast supply of gold en route, he spent time in Cairo, where his lavish gift giving is said to have noticeably affected the value in gold, which meant that he brought so much gold
Yeah.
it messed up the it messed up the trade inflation and whatnot.
Hmm.
It says Musa expanded the excuse me, gentlemen. Let's see. It says Musa expanded the borders of Mali Empire, and particularly incorporating the cities of Gayo and Timbuktu into its territory. He sought closer ties with the rest of the Muslim world, particularly the Mamluk and the Madrid. I can't pronounce that. It says so basically, this Mansa Musa was a really rich gentleman, and some other things I was reading about him is he traveled with the first time he sent people to look for America, which was before Columbus. The first time he did, he sent like 2,000 ships. The next time he sent like 20,000, like got a number amount of ships, gold, camels, and so a little bit more about the rest of the chapter is one of the strongest. Oh, I'm sorry, gentlemen. Excuse me. It says the captain reported that the other ships that he pulled away. Excuse me, right quick, gentlemen. Okay. Okay. One more, some more things about the chapter is the chapter also explains the ocean currents and trade winds naturally moved from West Africa towards the Americas. This means that the African ships could have crossed the Atlantic using natural forces, even without the modern navigation tools. African civilizations were known for their strong trade networks, skilled sailors, and knowledge of geography. It says, additionally, early European explorers reported seeing black people already living in these parts of Central and South America and the Caribbean. Some reports describe these people using metal tools, weapons made of gold, silver, copper, and similar other metals in Africa. Um, this chapter also discusses the Olmec civilization of Mexico, which created massive stone head sculptures. Some
Oh
scholars
yeah.
believed that these sculptures had facial features similar to African people, which they saw as possible evidence as African presence or influence. So um, African merchants and traders were highly skilled and traveled long distances to exchange goods such as gold, metal, and textiles. This shows that African civilization had advanced economic systems and the ability to explore beyond its own continents. Um, Chapter 6 also argues that the Africans were not isolated, but were explorers, traders, and navigators who may have reached the Americans before Columbus. It challenges traditional history and presents the idea that African civilizations may have played an important role in early global exploration and in influencing early American civilizations.
Hmm.
This chapter encourages us to reconsider Africa's role in world history and recognize its possible contributions to global development.
Sure.
Any any questions or anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, that was you are dead on, Corey. Mansa Musa did start. He did send out those ships. So and they caught. I
Hmm.
forget the name of the current. They caught that current and they came
Hmm.
all the way to America. And so you mentioned the Olmecs and the Stoneheads. Those were definitely of African descent. When they first came there, and the Africans got off, they were in awe because they were draped in all fine jewelry and gold in their dress. They worshipped these uh, these individuals as gods. Since you have the Stoneheads, and so this book right here. They did before
man.
Columbus.
Yeah. I
Right
read that a
here.
while back. Yes, sir.
It's a good book.
By,
It
by
goes
Ivan Van
into,
Sertima.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
It goes into great detail about that. You know, there's a theory that it wasn't until after Columbus, 1492, doing for the Atlantic slave trade that Africans were here first, but that is absolutely not true. That's not true. We were here long before then.
Yeah, bro. And that makes your Munsa. He sent the 8,000 ships, and if I remember right in the chapter, Jackson was saying that they sent them all out. I think they got towards the Gulf, and they caught a current, and all the ships kept going. There was one gentleman that came back. I guess he was too afraid to continue.
That's right.
And he reported that everyone continued on the current. And when you look at all the structures in South America, all the pyramids, and then you have the pyramids that are over in Egypt, it makes sense. Where do they get the idea of that structure from?
Right.
And then, as you guys, Corey mentioned, the statues, a lot of the, those Africans went over there to South America and they integrated with the society there, intermingled. And that's why we see the statues look the way they do.
Absolutely.
Right.
That was pretty interesting. I didn't know this.
Yeah. Even Churchward mentions about the Exodus and how the Exodus of Africa played a huge influence, across this world when it comes to religion, because he's actually able to look at the autographs of the hieroglyphs of each and most countries and their culture and give some comparison to the Nile Valley gods at a particular time. And even to Mansa Musa, when you look at I had read that before Columbus as well, it even talked about the gold and the headdress of the African people when they came over here to see the indigenous peoples of America, or Turtle Island at the time. They also begin to dress similar as Mansa Musa. You know what I mean? And so that gives some comparison between the two of how, they were doing particularly foreign trade.
That's right.
Hey, wonderful, brothers. Wonderful.
Yes, sir. All right, man. Is that all you got, brother?
Yeah, that's all I got for chapter 6.
That's what's up, bro. That was good. I like that.
Yeah, it was.
All right, big
man,
dog, big king.
On?
Yes, sir.
Yes, come on.
All right, guys. So, kind of funny. I was a Navy guy, and you guys gave me the chapter about boats.
It was meant to be.
So, anyways, tonight I was, yes, sir. Chapter 7, Introduction to African Civilizations. This chapter is actually less about dates and names and more about correcting a picture most of us grew up with. We usually imagine ancient civilizations happening in only a few places like Egypt, Greece, Rome, and the Middle East.
Right.
And Africa is sort of standing outside of that story. So Jackson's argument in this chapter is that the picture is incomplete. He's trying to show that East Africa, especially the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean regions, was part of an international world much earlier than we normally think. So my first point I have today is East Africa was connected to the ancient world through trade. The first major idea Jackson presents in East Africa is that it was not isolated. It was connected to other civilizations through long-distance trade routes, especially the Red Sea and the Indian Oceans. He talks about ports like Adulis, which connected the inland kingdoms, such as Exum and the older Kushite regions, to the maritime trade. Goods from the African interior didn't just stay local. They moved outward along organized trade routes. Caravans brought materials from inland Africa to the coast, and ships carried them across the sea to Arabia, Persia, and India. Jackson also points out something very important. Sailors in the region understood the monsoon wind system in the region. These winds changed directly seasonally. That meant ships could reliably leave East Africa, travel to Arabia and India, and then return months later using the reverse winds. So this wasn't occasional contact. It was a repeated network. It's pretty fascinating, man. A wild it built a predictable trade network.
Right.
So he even brings in culture memory, like the story of the Queen of Sheba. So the Queen of Sheba visited King Solomon. Whether someone takes that story literal or not, Jackson's point is that traditions connecting Ethiopia and the Near East exist between those regions which were in contact. Diplomatic visits and gift exchanges only happen when two societies know each other through trade and communication.
Right.
And that's really important. So Jackson's first major claim in this chapter is that East Africa was part of the ancient world economy long before European exploration. Merchants, sailors, and kingdoms in that region were already interacting with Asia and the Middle East. I mean, they were going all over the Indian Ocean. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, I forgot. I had a question I was going to ask you guys. Let me bring that up.
Sir.
So, do you guys think history classes today still tend to present ancient civilizations as isolated regions, or are we just not taught enough about the trade connections between them?
I think that we're not taught enough about them. It seems as we progress further into the future, history is left behind instead of being brought along with us. As they said, history leaves clues. And, you're only taught about, like in America, you're only taught about American history. And in France, you're only taught about France history. And I think Haru had mentioned this earlier about global history, because it is all interconnected, whether, folks want to believe that or not. And I'll say this too, history, as we see, as with most things, has become in like from grades from kindergarten up to high school is just a general concept. To go to college, and it becomes more specialized, and you get the more in-depth knowledge that comes along with that degree. And I'll just give this little story here. I was at AutoZone getting a battery replaced, and so a young gentleman came out and he was helping me doing it. So I sparked up a conversation with him, and come to find out, he's a history major, and so he was going to be a teacher. However, when he got to the school and seeing the curriculum that he was supposed to follow versus what he had just spent his entire life up until that point to learn, it was out of whack. And he was frustrated with that because he did not agree with what the curriculum, what the school had to offer versus the knowledge that he had just gotten. It did not make sense to him, so he quit. And this young man, he is working at AutoZone. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's giving an example. Like, he spent all that time to learn the history, and he was not able to apply any of that knowledge to the school curriculum. Right. So I definitely think there is an absolute disconnect, a huge gap in that regard.
Yeah, I concur that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of add.
Move on to my second point of the chapter. Oh,
no, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
All right. So continue the second point, man. East African societies were organized and economic action makes in that the societies involved in this trade were not primitive settlements. They were structured, they were urban and economically significant. He describes kingdoms like Kush and Meroe, which had ironworking and organized government, and Exum, which functioned as a political and commercial center connected to the coast. But this strong example is the Swahili coastal cities, especially Kilwa. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I think I am.
I would agree.
Kilwa became one of the richest cities in the region because so Kilwa became one of the richest cities in this region because it controlled the export of gold from inland South Africa. Gold from the interior mining areas was carried by caravans to the coast, and from the ships exported ivory, iron, and other valuable materials. Now, what matters here is not just about trade, international commerce. Travelers like Batuta even described visiting them and recognizing them as prosperous societies. So Jackson emphasizes that these coastal cities were African in origin. They interacted with Arab and Persian leaders and adopted some cultural influences, but they were not foreign colonies. They were African city states participating in East Africa. It wasn't only connected to the world trade, but it was economically important within it. Other civilizations valued the resources coming out of Africa, and that gave these societies wealth and influence. So that it was in another continent because of the massive wealth and resources within them.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
my discussion question: if societies like Kilwa were wealthy and internationally connected, why do you think they're barely mentioned in most general history education?
Oh my gosh. Robert, you want to hit this one again, and let me take this one?
You keep going, and I'll piggyback on
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, you cannot empower the very people that you're enslaving. I mean, it just comes down to it. So I mean, they're not going to give you that. The European concept. Um, so it I mean, that's as easy to be said. I mean, that's
you.
it.
That's right.
That's really it.
That's
I
right.
mean,
Yes, sir.
and it's sad we don't know, and it's sad it's like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I mean, that's where we have now is our reading, our book club. To enlighten other brothers and sisters in the world to get them to understand where they came from and how well connected we are. Do you know what I mean? Through not only through trade, but even through just mankind itself. To call
Absolutely.
any one of you guys on this phone my brother, you are my brothers. And not
Right.
only through that, just by my perspective, right? And how I see things, but based upon the birth of the world. So I'll leave it as that.
But,
I
and so I'll
digress.
piggyback on that too. So, just go back to the example of the Moors. So what if the Moors hadn't been around?
Right.
Would Europe have progressed to where it is now? It's possible. It probably would have taken a lot longer if they would have, because the excerpt that I read, you could see that their thinking was not on par with what the civilization of what the Moors had,
Right.
and yet they ruled for 700 years, and
Right.
yet the kingdom of the Moors is not mentioned in the annals of history
Mm-mm.
at all.
Nope.
And scholars came from all over the world to
Right.
study there.
Right.
At that point in time, the city of Cordova was second to none in Europe.
Right.
But as we read that question, it is almost like it's been erased. You hear nothing
Nah.
about the Moors. It's like they do not want to accept that they were brought along by Africans, or so however you want to put it. You can't deny the fact.
Yeah.
You can't deny the fact.
Yes,
Can you gentlemen, as we
Makes all the more
if you,
reason.
like if you remember in school, did any of you gentlemen hear of the Moors? Had you ever heard it? When was
No.
the first time that you actually heard the Moors? It was my first time hearing. I'm 43, and
Assassin's Creed.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, the first time I learned about him was a video game.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not joking, man. It was a video
Yeah.
game. They never taught us that stuff. And,
Yeah.
for anybody that's watching, I mean, we need to take it upon ourselves to stop relying on the authority of the government to teach us history.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Start reading books that is not from
Mm-hmm.
your history class at school.
That's right.
Right. Right.
Anyways,
Amen
let's
to
move on
that.
to point 3. So the last point of this chapter, and this is, I want to drive this point home, an existing system. So the third point Jackson makes, it comes toward the end of the chapter, and it's really his conclusion. He explains that when the Portuguese arrived in the Indian Ocean, they did not discover an empty or undeveloped region. They entered an already functioning trade system. The coastal cities were thriving before Europeans arrived. In fact, Jackson suggests that European involvement contributed to the decline of some of these trading centers. Instead of creating trade networks, Europeans inserted themselves into existing ones and often used
I can't
force
hear him.
to control them. You can't hear me?
I got you now.
I can hear you.
So let me back up just a little bit. So Jackson's argument is that the East civilization of Africa did not begin with European contact. I'm sorry. I lost myself here. All right. So the East Africa did not begin with European contact. The trade European arrival changed the system, but it didn't start it. This is very important because it challenges a common historical narrative that outside powers brought development into Africa. When Jackson is arguing the opposite, that the region already had economic and political life of its own. So I was taught that the Europeans started it all. What really happened is that the Europeans found a system already in place and just took it over by force and then claimed it as their own.
Facts.
How much do you think of our understanding of world history changes when we look at European exploration as entering existing systems rather than creating them?
Well, it is a false narrative to say the least, as you just stated out. They were already civilized, and that is because of the trade network that was created by Mansa Musa by sending out those ships. Those places were already civilized. When the Africans came there, they taught them much. They introduced much to them. And you are dead on. They when Europeans came, they absolutely the stories, the conquistadors, and hey, they were ruthless.
You know, this might be a wild idea, but with all that gold, all the resources and gold coming out of Africa going to the other continents, this kind of happened before Europeans took power. It might, in my opinion, with all that gold and resources going to other countries while Europeans are taking them over, kind of seems like the Europeans was able to build their empire off the resources from Africa.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your question was, how does history change if we see European exploration as entering existing systems? Well, you know what I think too, man. My thing is just unity, togetherness. You know what I mean? If we understand that we've all piggybacked off each other in some sense and we've helped each other, then there's no need to fight. There's no need to segregate. There's no need to say, hey, you're superior and I'm inferior, or whatever the case may be. And this would be a lot better country if we were able to look back and say, oh, look what happened, you know. And so, but again, as we see right now through our society, how the division of ignorance is a division of ignorance, because most 85 to 90% of people don't even understand this point of what we're reading right now. You know what I mean? And if they did, the togetherness would be strong. But right now, the system would not survive if we were all together and stood by each other as we did before.
Because ignorance is sin, brother.
It is, bro. It is. Yeah,
gentlemen, that was great stuff, gentlemen. Great stuff. And so, just as this conclusion of one point I will say through all of this, and you mentioned the library. First there was the Great Library of Alexandria. Then there was the Great Library of Carthage.
Right.
And then now we come across the Great Library of Cordoba. And so we're talking about, possibly 1.5, 2 million volumes of literature. Some of this, especially when you talk about the Library of Alexandria, that probably had the origins of philosophy and science and astronomy. Right. I mean, you name it. And so what I'm getting at, they would send out expeditions to find literature all over the earth because it was just that rare. And not everybody had access to that. Most of the population was uneducated. The ones who got privy to that, whether, if you will, against the elite or royalty and kings and things of that nature, or the scribes, they're the ones who had access to that information. Right. There were not authors, on every corner. That's why they sent out the expeditions to find that stuff, and they paid handsomely for that information. And so the point I'm getting at, is, that's so much ancient knowledge that was destroyed. I wonder what impact would that have made on the world right now if it had been kept and allowed to be able to advance and build up on? Where would we be as a civilization collectively?
Right. Yeah.
It is food for thought for sure. I'm just, and that's just the one book. And listen, I'm sure all of these you could probably say all of these ancient civilizations had great libraries, and all of it seems to be, so far what we come across, they've just been absolutely destroyed. Now, Alexander the Great, after he realized, he tried to save the Library of Alexandria, but when the Romans came, they absolutely destroyed all the rest of it. But I'm just amazed by all that literature that just, again, some of these things were the beginning of the beginning, and it's gone.
Yeah, and that was part of the Dark Ages anyway. To take the books of the world and combine them really into one to give us. We know the first Bible that came out was the Gutenberg Bible. You know what I mean? From the Gutenberg Press. And then it kind of ventured off from there. You know what I mean? But that's why we have the Helios Biblios, because it's a story of many, many, many civilizations.
And the Roman Catholics burning that library. I didn't mean to say Roman Catholics. I meant the Romans. But
you got us in trouble.
But we do know the Vatican has a massive library underneath that small country they own. Yes, and who's to say? I'm Roman Catholic. They became the church.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of books they don't want us to know about.
Hey, I'm reeling. Hey, road trip. Brothers retreat at the Vatican.
They ain't gonna let us in, man.
Right. Yeah, they'll let us in.
Hey, with the four of us, this will not be a Walmart experience with all four of us. I guarantee you that.
Man, brothers.
I'm pretty sure stuff. To go look at the Vatican, you'd have to make a request.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Oh, yeah.
What I was saying is, to visit the Vatican, you got to make a request, and you got to tell them what book you want to look at.
Yes.
You can't just go explore.
Oh, wow. That's right.
That's
right.
I'm down.
So if you don't know the books, how are you going to know which one to write down to go look at?
That's true.
This is true. You got that spotlight on beautiful people, Haru?
Oh man, you know what? You got me tonight. You know what though? I want to do my spotlight on Brother Robert
Mansa Musa,
because that would be a good one. That would be a good one. But you know what? I say my spotlight tonight would be Robert. Robert has put a lot of hard work and effort into bringing us together. I remember when him and I first mentioned about doing a podcast / book club about 3 or 4 years ago. And every time I seen him in between there, he would always ask me, hey, you ready for that book club? You ready for that book club? You ready for a book club? And I would look on his shelf and see new books every single time I would visit him and realize that he's already doing this. And so my spotlight tonight is Brother Robert Earl Pride, because he has brought us together as men. He's opened up and expanded our minds. And I am woefully thankful to be a part of this and be a part of your life, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Wow. Hey, I told you not to be trying to make me cry, dog.
Hey,
I mean, like,
hey,
come on, man.
hey,
I told you about that.
hey,
I told you about that. Hey, listen, man. Listen.
I want to piggyback. I want to
Oh,
piggyback
go ahead.
off what Haru was saying. Robert, I ain't never met somebody who read so much, man. Like when I
Right.
first, I came on. I'm like, okay, so we reading a book. They talking about a book a month. I was like, damn, this dude read a whole bunch of books.
Mhm.
This gentleman, man, I give it to you every time that every time I talk to Robert. Robert has always got a new book. You know what I'm saying? A
Mhm.
new book in
Yes,
his
he
hand,
does.
and I commend you. I commend you for that. For saying what you're gonna do, man. And you going hey, my hats off to you, brother, because you
Yes,
you
sir.
definitely do a damn good job
Yes,
on
sir.
like I look up to that, man. I look up to reading and educating myself as much as you do, man. It's getting those
Yes, sir.
pages in, and so
Yes, sir.
I'm with Haru, man, and I appreciate you, Robert.
Listen, brother. You know, man. The goal is 25 books a year,
Mhm.
and they say the brain is there's nothing that can compare to the brain when it comes to learning.
Right.
And so my goal is to absolutely prove that is true. But let me say this, it wouldn't be possible, the enjoyment that I get from having you kings on here with me for allowing me to be able to express these things. And I am so grateful because I never saw this coming. Never saw this coming. I mean, we 1, 2, 3, 4, and it is just phenomenally beautiful to me. And I'm grateful for all of you for giving me the opportunity to do this. It wouldn't be here if I didn't have you guys. It's just that simple.
Right. Right.
It's just that simple.
Bro, love you, King.
And we wouldn't be here if we didn't have you.
True.
Absolutely,
Real talk.
brother.
Real talk.
Absolutely. So with that being said, with all that good love, we
No worry,
encourage
guys.
your likes, your thoughts, your suggestions, your questions. Put them on there and let us hear what you have to say. The conversation tonight was phenomenal. Pick up a book and read. Pick up a book and read. I'm not saying you got to get 25 in a year, but at least get one. Get one.
Yeah.
I tell you, you'll be absolutely amazed at what you come across. There you go. There you go.
Sir. There you go, Chris. There you go, brother.
All right, Kings. We will. Let's see. We'll see about Tuesday. How we can do this. Outside of that, much love, Kings. Until
Much love,
next
brothers.
time.
Love y'all, Kings.
Love you too.